We're going to begin this Tomb Tape 4 by first showing the letter that was sent as a legal representation of the discovery. It is dated, you'll notice, July the 19th, 1994. To whom it may concern, upon this day Paul Kelly and Brian Hubbard have made claim that the tomb of Alexander the Great and the entire crypt of the Ptolemaic dynasty, including the body of Queen Cleopatra, has been identified in the location known as Burroughs Cave in south-central Illinois. The two parties make claim that they, working alone, have made the discovery and claim before any other party. The parties now submit this document to prove as legal evidence of same. And this is when we got into a lot of trouble. This began the ball spinning for us. We had no idea the type of Pandora's box that we had just now opened. The first publication that we released was a video called Tomb Tape 3. It was called Tomb Tape 3 because the first two were basic practice runs. And by the third script we had answered all of the questions that we thought we could ask and had perfected the idea onto tape. So we made the Tomb Tape 3, which the initial Tomb Tape 3 featured several voices that were fictitious. So we were asked again to go and recut Tomb Tape 3 as it was with our regular normal speaking voices. So the famous Tomb Tape 3 is actually the second version of the Tomb Tape 3. And we tagged Tomb Tape 3 with more photographs and decipherments in the end and put an intro to it and sent that particular tape to the 12 embassies involved in October of 1994. Tomb Tape 3 began giving descriptions of the tomb recorded by layman authors in various books. What was known as a Burroughs Cave had been discussed as a controversial issue in certain circles for many years. We explained the alphabets we used in Tomb Tape 3 and began deciphering the stones with simple animals and symbols and systematically drawing in letters and words. Let's go to Tomb Tape 3 as a reference and hear Paul explain the decipherment of the first long Helios script, and we will see other decipherments after that also from Tomb Tape 3. We look at another stone tablet from the Burroughs Cave, and as so often the case throughout the Burroughs Cave, there'll be a man's head and his name will be carved underneath the head or somewhere on the face of the stone where his head exists. And right now we're going to find out who Helios is.
Under reverse of the stone we have a bunch of script which describes this Helios. This is an extremely important recovery from the cave because it will give you exactly who this person was, what he was, and from what dynasty he came from. Over to the left, I have copied as best as I can the script that is on the stone, and looking at it, it is clearly the Etruscan script, the Etruscan. Here we have the backward F again, and we have numerous letters that are characteristic of the Etruscan script. Now, this particular script is written, the words are spaced very conveniently, which is really nice for this script, and it's written from right to left. For convenience sake, I have switched over the letters to how we would read them. Now let me give you a decipherment letter by letter of what it says. This here, written like a right triangle, is pronounced as a de. This letter here is a combination of a P and a T. It is pronounced pta. Down here we have what looks like a Y that is pronounced like IU, U. Here we have an R, R. Here we have U, T, R. Here we have U again. This letter is a G. And here we have E is ending. The cross-like symbol is et. Here we have pta again. R. U. Here we have the F, and it's pronounced like Efe. Here we have G again. U, et, is. Down here we have pta. Equilateral triangle is written as a le. Now we saw the open one, the li, and the elios. The closed one is like a le. Equilateral triangle. Right triangles are D. Equilateral triangles are le. Here we have gi, ti, is. Now reading this, it reads in the Latin language, a form of ancient Latin. Now I've written all the letters down. Now making it readable into what I call Church Latin. Over to the right, it reads, Deputo, Jure, Jupiter, Jugis, et Patriu, Effecetis, Ptole, Gyptis. Now what does this translate to into English? This translates to, from the Latin, as that this Elios on the reverse is depicted as sworn by Jupiter to belong and represent his forefathers, the Ptolemies of Egypt. We are looking at a descendant of the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt, one that is a member of the dynasty and is carrying on his dynasty.
An authentic rock tablet from the Burroughs Cave. We're going to see what it says. If you would please flip the rock. On the back of it, there appears to be some form of lake, river system, stream. And we wonder if it's possible, if the script on the other side could tell us what this meant, what this river was.
Now here I took the script from the stone and wrote it out right here exactly as it is on the stone. Now this particular script here, turns out, is written in a snake-like formation. You read it like this line, and it comes down and reads like this, then around here, and it ends right here. This is a very characteristic trait amongst a lot of the ancient scripts. You see it a lot in the Phoenician Aramaic as early as then, and in later scripts. Now for convenience sake, what I've done is, I've written this whole snake-like formation in straight order here, and I've also separated the words, as you can see right here. And I just go over here, and this is exactly how it is read. Once again, looking at this, the script is in the Etruscan script, and the language is an archaic form of Latin, which took me many hours to decipher and fight through, but it gives us exactly where that river is and what it is too, and its importance. Now let me write down a chart. Let me take every single word in the column, write the transliteration and the translation, and then we will put the whole thing together for you.
Okay, now what we're looking at is a word-for-word transliteration from the original ancient script into Latin.
We begin with the first word, and this is a type of a T-A-B-L, tabula. Below here we have a combination of an F and an L, reads as fleos. Here we have Yube with a silent E at the end. We have seen the Yuba before, but Yube. De, Helio, Here we have the FL again, fluzu. A B, baetum with the M. Kaylee. Close. Here we have like a modern G starting again, but it reads gade. This is the pata, read as pato. These letters here are read as pervunet. Here we have the fla, fila, p, punis. This is a combination of an F and an N. Finikeo. Here we have et again. And have we name raumilis. Here we have effetor and defludet. This is a form of archaic Latin, but most of the words are identical to the church Latin, except like the word fleos, we have the word flumen today, fluminis, which is rivers, but back then the word fluxus fleos means flowing water, so they used waterways as the word for rivers. Let's look at the translation here. Tabula, map, fleos, plural for rivers, eube, of Yuba, de, by, helios, flusus, singular river, baetos, baetum is the baetis, the name of the river, kaeli means inscribed in rock, quos in this case means on which, gade from Gades, a famous city, port city, poto means powerful, pervunet means navigated from the word pervenio, fila means offshoot or branch, like a genetic branch or offshoot, punis means Punic, Phoenicio means Phoenician, et means and, Raumilis is the Romulans, which here it seems is the old word for the Romans. They were called the Romulans, not the Romans. Makes perfect sense because Romulus was their founder, so why would they not be called the Romulans? Effetor means crushed, and defludet means they vanished. Now let's put all these words together into the paragraph and get the exact meaning of the script on the rock. Here we have the English translation. It says, Yuba's map of rivers by Helios. On this rock is inscribed the river Baetis, on which the powerful Punic branch of the Phoenicians from Gades navigated and vanished after Romulans crushed them. Now we know the name of the river Baetis, and it also names a city known as Gades. And we have the Romulans, which is the old original name of the Romans, who crushed these Punic branch of the Phoenicians, which were the Carthaginians. Now we have reference to the Second Punic War, which the Romans destroyed the Carthaginians in Spain. And we have the name of the river and the name of a city.
And see who this man is.
Here we have the man as representation of the bird here. It most probably matches the shield, and this is his breastplate, which indicates that this is the man buried in the main crypt. We will decipher his name. Let's go up here and start deciphering. Here we have Ba, S, A, Le, Ke, S, U, Pe, Le, O. Baz, Alex, U, Peleo. Let's look over here. Baz, Alex, U, Peleo. King Alexander of Pella, also known as Alexander the Great. This is the man that lies in the main crypt. The map of the ancient Roman world at the time of Augustus. Now here we have Egypt, conquered in 30 BC by Augustus Caesar. He fought a civil war against Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Mark Antony and Cleopatra both committed suicide, and Egypt was annexed to the Roman Empire. It was also the last time that the body of Alexander was viewed by Augustus as well as all the King Ptolemies. They were never ever seen again. Now, let's look at the children of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Now we have to go further into history to find out how this crypt possibly came over here. Let's look at the children of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Now Cleopatra had a son with Julius Caesar called Caesarion. Now he was killed while trying to flee to Ethiopia by Augustus Caesar when Egypt was conquered. There were 3 surviving children of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, which went to Rome and were raised by Augustus Caesar, Octavian's sister, her name Octavia. The name of the 3 children were Cleopatra Selene, which Selene means the moon, Ptolemy Philadelphus, and Alexander Helios. These were the 3 children that were taken to Rome after the fall of Egypt and raised by Octavia. Now history no longer records what happened after the childhood of Ptolemy Philadelphus and Alexander Helios. They just vanished from history. But we know what happened to Cleopatra Selene. Let us now go to Mauritania. Yuba, who we mentioned, this person Yuba here is a famous historical figure. His father was Yuba, known as Yuba I of Mauritania, which is the kingdom right here in Morocco, North Africa, where the Garamantes tribe live. His father fought for the Pompeian forces and was defeated at the Battle of Thapsus by Julius Caesar. The young boy Yuba, his son, was taken a hostage to Rome, and he was raised in Rome. As he grew up to be an adult, he fought distinguishedly for Augustus Caesar, and as a reward was granted his ancestral homelands of Mauritania in 25 BC. Now, guess who King Yuba of Mauritania married? He married the daughter of Antony and Cleopatra, Cleopatra Selene. She became the queen of Mauritania. And what happened to the other 2 boys, no one knows. What we know about Yuba was that he was a historian. He traveled a lot and wrote a history of Egypt, Assyria, Persia, Rome, Greece, and of his own people, the Garamantes Mauritanians. None of his historical works survive to this day. What about the 2 boys, Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphus? Well, we know from history that Selene and Yuba had a son known as Ptolemy, but he did not have a titular name like the name Philadelphus, Soter, which means he did not continue the royal line of the Ptolemies. Therefore, it means that the royal line of the Ptolemies was continued in Alexander Helios and or Ptolemy Philadelphus. Were they continuing this lineage of the Ptolemaic dynasty? The first question we have to ask, they apparently ended up in Mauritania with their sister and King Yuba, who is prevalent in Burroughs Cave. Now how do we get to Illinois?
Our next public disclosure of more decipherments was held in spring of 1995 in Columbus, Georgia at the Columbus Museum. Now we'll see some of the excerpts from that presentation.
Look at the stone here. You have the archaic script here written in different columns. I was able to decipher it and read it, and it reads from bottom to top, each line here. And here you have the characters to the right, which appear to be very similar to Ogham, but I believe it's a numerical index system in this case. Okay, let's take a look at the basic transliteration and translation. Initially I thought it would talk about a ship or some type of a historical event, but I guess I had to be taught a biology lesson here, and the whale on the bottom made sense to me. Okay, basically after deciphering the script, it came out to a vulgar form of Latin, which pronounces fateo litiga qui capisare effetto et aiubalina carme gymnetitos loc coevabat finios et via finita hodie. Okay, let's give a translation of what it says. You can take a look at this real quickly just to get an idea. I can write books on the decipherment, which I will do later once the tomb has been identified. But let me give you the translation of what this stone here, and it's very interesting. It looks like the person in the boat in the back was putting something into the water or making an observation, and this is what he says. He says, "I am revealing an argument which I will make understandable. I affirm that not only do whales make sounds when mating, but occasionally approach land, ending their travels." Very interesting. We had a scientist back then who did a study on whales, and it's recorded in the Burroughs Cave. Now this is the stone that really put the nail in the coffin for me as to what is in the tomb. You have the same type of inscription again. Okay, and it reads again from right to left, and then from left to right, and on, which I had called snake in the other video, but there's a fancy word which I forget all the time. Okay. Okay, and it reads as, here's the kind of lettering here, bello helio albo et filia quideleo bene finivi quoque perhibe reges el netua. And the translation is very interesting on this stone. And it translates as the handsome white Helios, defined as the righteous one by the people and possessor of the Hellenic kings. Now when I read possessor of the Hellenic kings, I was saying, well, it must be referring to all these other corpses that are in the body, and this Alexander Helios is the possessor. Now the main question I had, and we're still pondering over the answer, and I have a hypothesis over it, is how did the tomb get from Alexandria to America? We have evidence from the description what Russ gave of the tomb, the person that is depicted in the tomb, and by the way, the bird that you saw in Alexander, the falcon-like bird, it's very interesting that the word Alexandros in Greek means fowl of the air, which a cock, a bird, or fowl of the air. And it's very interesting, it seems like that he wore his name or his emblem on his shield and on his breastplate. And now we have this here. Like as Alexander Helios disappeared from history as a small boy, he somehow ended up over here to run this Mauritanian colony for his brother-in-law Yuba, who was married to Cleopatra Selene. Is there a bit of, can I see this? Okay, this is a stone owned by Beverly Mosley. I was able to get the script end of the photograph at first, and on the bottom of the stone there's what you see, an eye, and then at the top looks like a little figurine that could have possibly, I hypothesized, been Tanith, but I concluded that it was a type of an observation, the eye meaning I see or I saw. As you can see in the photograph, it's not that clear here for some reason. I was able to translate the stone first, and I was kind of shocked at what it said, but then I found out that there was also a photograph of the stone and a reverse of the stone, and we were able to get the photograph, and it pretty much confirmed to what we were seeing and what we were saying. And we've read a lot of ancient history that also confirmed such a sighting. It's something I try to get away from, but it just happened to be there. The observation reads, Sisteo aeli relapsus vetus via basis metere lux minave multoa, and it translates to as such: a basket-like object magnificently comes and goes in a swift-like motion, and on its base can be observed many red lights twisting together. That's a very bizarre sighting for something that happened in ancient times. And it looked like, from what you can see of the eye on the bottom, and this little doll-like object he was looking up to, as a description of what he could have been seeing. I thought he probably saw a divinity or something. But when I saw the reverse of the stone, it kind of blew my mind. Because of what the picture it shows. It shows a large flaming circular object,
And there's a lot of spike points going, and it looks like there's a trail, like some kind of a comet moving or some type. And that's what I thought at first. It could be some kind of comet-like object moving, and it's in an edition of the Midwestern Mechnographic magazine. The last edition shows a picture of that. But the inscriptions on the side are very interesting, which let's go and get a better view of the inscription. The top part on the right, it says "Effebit perpetually effixius bel," and it says "in likeness of a monster that constantly glows." And at the bottom it says "Ubiti est teletus," where its armor is made of bronze. So he's talking about a flying object that's glowing, that has red lights twisting it together, and its armor is made of bronze. And that kind of blew my mind, and we had to read a lot of ancient history to see that there were such accounts in ancient history, especially in Pliny. And another peculiar thing is I saw the two marks, the signature of Yuba on that stone. Could it be that he personally made the observation and had somebody write it down for him? Very observant person. He might have noticed something that was worth recording, and it ended up in a Burroughs cave.
These, as well as other decipherments, were made public. The decipherment file continued to grow, and we will see new decipherments later in this program. As of now, summer of '96, about 90 stones with script have been deciphered. Several of these tablets are quite lengthy. There are about 400 additional pictorial stones without script that have been identified, and still thousands yet to be studied and deciphered. We have also seen possible evidence of perhaps no more than 15 stones that appear to have been tainted or concocted. We want to make it clear at this point that we have documented 4 ancient languages from this tomb. And they are, as they appear in abundance in the tomb, Archaic Latin, Numidian, Demotic glyph, and pictographic glyph, also Greek. We continue to make videos such as this one, outlining our copyrights and the story discovering the tomb of Alexander the Great. This is 60,000 words concerning our story. Also, the new history that we had learned from the lost tomb. We called it Alexander Helios, with his name, Forgotten Emperor of Ancient America. This was in our pitch video. We also did a video, a modern discovery of the lost tomb, and actually documented who was first to get to the tomb. And in it also we show how the stories were concocted. We show a layout grid of the area and how the perpetrator had gotten from his hometown into the target area. This video also documented how the intruder used a series of treasure books to find his tomb. Let's go to this video that was cut called Searching for Alexander's Tomb. Before I show footage of our current operation, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. Is we have a lease agreement on the property, and I want to take your attention to one of the paragraphs in the lease agreement. The names have been covered to protect privacy. However, there is a clause I'd like for the viewer to see. Our lease covers 20 acres in Marion County, Illinois. It says, for the purpose of locating the tombs of Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, the Ptolemy family, or any other notable old world visitors, and recovering buried artifacts, scrolls, statues, treasure, coins, jewelry, and or monetary value therein. And here I'm focusing in on where it says tombs of Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, the Ptolemy family. So our evidence was conclusive to the landowner for us to be able to secure a land lease to look and search for the tombs of Alexander the Great and Cleopatra. We are the only people in history to secure a lease to search for these people. The searching video actually takes you down to the tomb site and shows you how our dig is going. In our correspondence with others concerning the Burroughs Cave issue, we received several different letters containing the Burroughs Cave Inc. insignia and name, and our office manager at Ptolemy contacted the capital of Illinois, Springfield, and was to learn that there was no such Burroughs Cave Inc. Yet we continued to receive correspondence on the Burroughs Cave Inc. letterhead. She next incorporated the name Burroughs Cave Inc. with the state of Illinois, and now formally requests those who are commercially using the name Burroughs Cave and Burroughs Cave Inc. to cease doing so without her written permission. We are now making available to the general public this well-organized binder, 43 pages long, listing in detail our allegations against Mr. Burroughs. This presentation features copies of forged letters, faked signatures of a mythical landowner who was never contacted concerning the discovery made on his property. There are copies of bogus business deals involving Jack Ward and Norman Cullen, which clearly show fraud and deception. Several letters penned through the years by various persons which are now copyrighted as a group for our specific purpose and issue. A new history for a new century was coined to be our new logo selected to accompany authentic historical information being released at this time. At this time, we wish to detail several of our statements and make our specific claims clear. First and foremost is the fact that Alexander the Great is buried in the Burroughs Cave. No decipherments contradict this claim, but all support it in some capacity. No one has brought forth any evidence to even slightly suggest different. Our second claim is that the entire Ptolemaic crypt was brought to North America by Alexander Helios, a missing son of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, sometime after 25 BC. He was assisted to a very great extent by his best friend and trusted brother-in-law, King Yuba II of Mauritania. Our third claim is that the ancient Etruscan language from central Italy is a form of Latin in its agglutinative stage. If you are interested in this controversial issue, we will be producing a video series covering archaic Latin very thoroughly. The first tape of the series is now available. Our fourth claim is that there is absolutely, positively, no Ogham inscriptions in North America. No Ogham Consane, no hair Ogham, no beard Ogham, no teeth Ogham. We will be releasing our proof of this in another video production very soon concerning Ogham script and the decipherments of Ogham script. This claim is liable to make many very upset at us. But we have to do this in order to sustain the credibility which we therefore desire. The Michigan tablets are not old. This item is marked for discussion also on the Ogham tape to be released soon. Our sixth claim is that the Paleo-Hebrew inscription at the Las Lunas site in New Mexico is also a modern-day forgery. Claim number 7 is that the Davenport steel is also a modern forgery. This steel will be discussed in an upcoming video concerning several of these tablets from North America and their decipherments. Claim number 8 deals with the Ohio Decalogue, which we also feel is a modern concoction. We will be supporting our opinion concerning this issue also in an upcoming video. Claim number 9 will also be dealt with in our upcoming Ogham video. And it states that there were no Celts ever living in Britain or Ireland in ancient times. We will be referring, of course, to the ancient writers, none of which record that the Celts lived in Britain or Ireland. Our 10th and final claim for this segment is that Welsh and Gaelic are not Celtic languages, and anyone who says they are simply is not informed well. Okay, now we're going to take a look at some new decipherments being released for the first time on this video, featuring Paul Shafranca.
The first artifact we'll be looking at is a portrait stone of a man wearing an Iberian helmet cap from the 2nd century BC. The top portion of the stone contains an inscription which bears the name of this person. The inscription on the top is in the Numidian alphabet. We are now going to look at the letters and reveal the name of this famous historical character. The first portion of the inscription contains the name of the person. The latter half of the inscription is to this point still undeciphered. I can only speculate on its content. Looking at the first letter, we have a Numidian equivalent of a ch, which is written in the H down here. The following letter is a straight Numidian line, which is an N. The third letter is an aleph, which has been borrowed from the Phoenician alphabet. The Numidians only once in a while used a dot, but they also applied the Phoenician aleph as their aleph symbol. The fourth letter, the square with the dot, is a Numidian B. And the last letter up on top here is the Numidian L. The name it spells out is Hanabel, which is the equivalent of Hannibal. The portrait portrayed is the famous Hannibal Barca. He wears an Iberian helmet because he was born in Spain. He was the son of Hamilcar, and the famous general who raided Italy. The following letters on the bottom here, the E, T, Hag, I have not been able to this point to decipher yet, but I will keep you updated as soon as I am able to cover to a decipherment. So the first stone we have is a portrait of the famous Hannibal Barca in the Numidian alphabet. Our next artifact also features the portrait of a very famous historical figure. To the left of this stone, we notice 4 characters. These characters are also in the classical Numidian alphabet. Let us now look at what the person's name is. The script on the stone is written from bottom to top. The first letter is the Numidian M. The second letter is a Numidian Th. The third letter is a Numidian D. And the final letter is a Numidian T. The name it spells out in Numidian is Mithridate, which is the equivalent of Mithridates. This is a very detailed portrait of Mithridates VI, the great king of Pontus, who terrorized Rome in Asia Minor from 70 to 80 BC. He was an ardent enemy of the Roman Empire, and he was finally defeated first by Lucullus and then by Pompey. Let us take a look at some of the features on King Mithridates. He is wearing a beautiful crown or helmet of a bird or a hawk. More likely in reality, this was made out of gold. He is also wearing the famous circle cross figure, which is the symbol of an aria. It descends from the Persians, who also the Persian nobility called themselves Arya and Arya. The kingdom of Pontus was one of the few kingdoms that was not totally engulfed by Hellenism, so therefore the dynasty which began in that area also called themselves Arya and Arya, after the Persian model of the Achaemenid dynasty. So here we have a portrait of Mithridates VI of Pontus wearing a beautiful bird-like helmet, possibly made out of gold, and wearing the symbol of an Arya. Our third artifact portrait also features a very famous historical figure. Notice a warrior wearing a beautiful helmet who is enshrouded with some form of leaves. Keep that in mind. As you will also see his face, he is an extremely strong and arrogant person, and by looking at this portrait, it was somebody I do not think the average person would have wanted to mess with. To the right, up at the top, is an inscription which gives the person's name and a little description about him. This photograph was also detailed on the front cover of the 10th anniversary volume of the Midwestern Epigraphic Journal, known as Volume 7, 1993. Let us now look at the decipherment of this historical figure's name. Let us now look at the characters and the decipherment of this script. The alphabet is in an Iberic or Western Mediterranean alphabet, and the language is a vulgar archaic Latin. Let's now look at the first letter. For those who have seen my previous work, for example the Heliostone, this first letter here has been deciphered as a PT combination, PT. The next letter is an Iberic P. Then we have an R, an O, and then an OS combination. The next word begins once again with a PT, and then we have the letter P, and then an Iberic M, one form of an Iberic M. Begins another word, another Iberic M. Then we have the triangle here, which is a Le or Le, which we have on one of the Ptolemy stones in some of the previous decipherments. And then we have an S, the X is S as an ending. Then we have another R, and XS as an ending. We have once again an M, an XS as an ending, followed by an XS as an ending. When you look at it in archaic Latin, this has been abbreviated. But knowing the abbreviations and the different combinations and possibilities, you can derive on what this person's name is in a description. The first, Pte, refers to pot, or the word potens. Then we have Pyros, the person, king's name. Once again comes the word Pte, pot. Then we have an abbreviated name, Pam, PM, which spells out as Pam. Next word we have is M-L-C. Then we have Rex, and MSS, which spells Max. Let us now detailedly look at the full complete words and the translation of this inscription. Now I will take this abbreviated archaic Latin and translate it as closely as possible as I can to classical Latin translation. First one's pot is the Latin word potens. We have the name Pyrrhus,
Once again, potens. And then the PM is an abbreviation for the Latin word pampineos. Very significant word. As I said before, remembering all the features of the stone. This is a very significant word. Another word, molossi, rex, and maximus. So it reads, potens pyrrhos, potens pampineos, molossi rex, maximus. Now let us get the English translation for it. Now for the translation. The Latin potens means mighty. Pyrrhos, the name of the king, is King Pyrrhos. Once again, potens, mighty. And then the word pampineos means one who is shrouded with garlands of wine leaves. Do you remember the picture? Molossi, Molossion, Rex, king, and Maximus, greatest king. Let's now look at this decipherment and try to find matches to codify this decipherment as accurate. First we have the name Pyrrhos, which is the name of the figure in the stone. Then we have the name Molossion, king of the Molossians. This historical figure is the famous King Pyrrhos of Epirus, who waged war against the Romans in the year 275 BC and also against the Sicilians. He was a cousin of Alexander the Great on the line of Olympias, nephew of Olympias, Alexander the Great's mother. Yes, Pyrrhos, the king of Epirus, was the king of the Molossians. That was the tribe which ruled in Epirus. Epirus is now closely associated to the nation of Albania in that area. Stone translated as, Mighty Pyrrhos, mighty one, shrouded with garlands of wine leaves, greatest king of the Molossians. Yes, Pyrrhos of Epirus was the greatest king of the Molossians. There were no kings following his death, and Epirus never rose into prominence following his death. Now we'll take a look at the picture again, the portrait of Pyrrhos of Epirus, king of the Molossians. And as the decipherment and the script confirms, you notice the leaves, the wine leaves he is shrouded with. Once again, this is a portrait of the famous Pyrrhos, king of Epirus, an artifact coming out of the tomb of Alexander the Great, also known as the Burrows Cave. Our next artifact features a helmeted person of important significance. We see a strange style helmet which appears to be an Achaean Greek helmet. And then we have a person wearing a type of body armor. The significant part of this stone is the reverse of this stone. Let us take a look at the reverse. The reverse of this artifact includes a relatively lengthy inscription, 2 lines of script. It is read from right to left. The alphabet, once again, is in the Numidian alphabet. And remember, this stone originated in North America. Let us take a look at this alphabet. Now we will write up the entire inscription in its alphabetic characters, and we will go down and decipher it letter by letter. In deciphering this Numidian alphabet, I determined that it was a Category 2 neoclassical Numidian. There are like 3 different categories in the Numidian alphabet, but the interesting part of this is the language of the decipherment. Broke everything down. The first letter translates to a wa, the second letter is a s, third letter is a r. Next word we have a wa, circle with a dot is a b, and then circle is r. So again we have wa, r, h. P, r, h, un, h, aka. Very interesting thing I came to when looking at this is that this category 2 Numidian was largely used mostly by Libyan-speaking people, whereas the category 1 was used more by Moroccan, Algerian, who spoke a Berber form of Numidian, which is very similar to a Berber today. But this employed a Libyan language which is very identical to Egyptian Demotic. Let us now look at the translation of this stone. Looking at the decipherments of the letter and reading its sound values, I was able to conclude that it was a Libyan dialect which was very identical to an Egyptian Demotic, spoken in the 2nd century BC up through the time of Christ, the most modern form of Egyptian that was spoken at that time. This was followed by Coptic, but we have the Demotic language of Egyptian on this inscription. Let's look at the first word, Wazir. Wazir translates to Osiris, the god Osiris. Waber translates to priest. Wa means and. Warach means great. Then you have Peru. Peru translates to pharaoh or king, or an Egyptian house, but there was a title applied to pharaoh. Then you have the famous word Ankh, which means living. And then you have another title called Akka, which is a form of a sun god. Akka was referred to in Egyptian as a light being, a light god, something that radiated from the sun. We have examples of Akhenaten, which is the famous Pharaoh Akhenaten who called himself that, and he had the title Aku, follower of the sun god. The two brothers Ptolemy Epiphanes also had the title Akka and put it their name. And then you have the famous title, which gives a clue as to who this is the Egyptian word Akiuit, which refers to as the two eyes of Horus, one representing the sun and the other representing the moon. This is a male on the opposite side of the stone. He calls himself the sun. So, what does the Egyptian Demotic Wazir, Waber, Warak, Ankh, Akka, Peru translate to? All these different words, they translate to, I am the priest of Osiris and great king, the living sun god. Now, as I said, Akka, sun god, also represented Akuit, the two eyes of Horus, one representing the sun and one representing the moon. I draw a conclusion that this person defined as Alexander Helios, the sun, for his twin sister Cleopatra Selene was known as the moon. So he is representing himself as a living sun god. This stone is also from the tomb of Alexander the Great, known as Burroughs Cave. These four examples I have just given you are just a very small portion of the tablets that have been deciphered. Many more have been deciphered, and these will be featured in several linguistic videos. The two featured videos will be the Etruscan, Latin, archaic languages, and then we will have a second portion of a linguistic video specializing in the alphabets and languages that are found in the tomb of Alexander the Great, Burroughs Cave, that stem from North Africa. These will be featured in great detail. We will be featuring alphabets and linguistic terms so that the person watching it can follow closely. Thank you very much.